Welcome, Simon Lerner. So I always pretend it's like my start where I pretend not to know how to start these things, even though I obviously do know how to start these things, but we're going to keep going with the theme. And thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, Kevin.
This afternoon.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, man. So we're just going to get right into it because there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk to you about. Obviously, what you've done for Tampa as far as the Tampa Entrepreneur Club, we'll get to that later, just a little teaser. But dude, that was incredible. The last event that I went to, I want to say you had like over 800 people. The logistics behind that, all of that is insane, man. That's something else.
It means the world to me. And also it's super crazy how we leveraged that opportunity. We actually met at the last event because we were wearing the same watch, I think. Yeah. I came up to you, I'm like, dude, look down. We look at our wrists and we're wearing the same watch. And then we followed each other. You reached out and now we're here like a month later shooting a podcast. And then it's incredible just how many different stories we have of different people, from opportunities they've opened up. Some people have met their like business partner through our events. Some people have met their like spouse at our events, got clients. Like just the stories I hear from all the connections that people make at the events are incredible. And I'm a true testament to that, being here on the show from us connecting and being strangers less than a month ago. So.
100%, man. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to at that event, and then we'll transition in to more about you, but I won't forget how we met is you were like, hey, we have matching watches. We had matching APs on, by the way. Mm-hmm. Started talking for a quick minute. You're like, cool, I got to keep going, but let's take, I think we exchanged contact information. We followed each other on Instagram. And then you're like, cool, send me a photo. Now I remember who you are. And I'm starting to see that more now with like the photo thing of actually like remembering people. And I thought that was an amazing way to kind of connect and I haven't forgotten it and seen it more now, recognizing it, because how many people do you meet and you're like, okay, I don't really remember that.
So many people on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And people ask me all the time, do you know this guy? Do you know Jonathan? Do you know Rob? I'm like, do you have a picture? Do you have a visual? I'm a very visual guy. So
okay.
Unless you can show me a face, a name doesn't mean anything to me.
Absolutely.
Even though unless we have deep rapport and a deep connection, I'm not going to remember who Kevin is from the first glance, because that evening I met probably 50 more different individuals from all walks of life. And the next morning, I don't want to be just...
You would hope, right?
Yeah.
At least 50.
I don't want to be waking up and going to my office and having 50 business cards. I'm like, who is Kevin Sullivan, attorney? Like, when did we meet? Who is he? Especially for people that don't even have a picture of them on a business card. That's the worst. By the way, guys, if you're still using business cards in 2024, make sure you at least have a picture of yourself or a face on there. A lot of people give business cards and just literally just a name and a website, and you can't even remember what that person looked like. So.
Business cards have become so impersonable, impersonal, right? Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, I see all these cool apps out there and bumping phones and all these different things to share contact information. And I think that's a huge point to make, man, is you need to upgrade your connecting. And I think that's the simplest way to put it, is that you got to take that extra step and make sure that's memorable and that interaction is memorable, not only then, but after the fact as well. So you actually can make that connection, because yeah, absolutely. Just handing somebody a business card and be like, hey man, nice meeting you, or hey, nice meeting you.
And that's why we started these events, to really focus on relationships first over business. We want people to not only be able to do business, but do life together. And that's proceeded on the fact that I've gone to so many business events and conferences, and I've spoken at dozens of events. They're all so freaking transactional, man. You don't realize that every single person that comes up to you, they're like, I do this, I do that. If you need this and that service, hit me up. I'm like, this is so off-putting. I want to know you for who you are before I even want to do business with you. That's like basic human nature. It's so like off-putting. It's like the same concept of give, ask, and people don't really conceptualize that when they meet people. They just want to take. They're like, oh, by the way, I do solar, or I do life insurance, or I'm an attorney. If you like the first interaction we had, you didn't say anything about, hey, I'm an attorney. Hit me up if you get into an accident and I'll get you some money. Like if that was our first interaction, I probably would have been much less likely to reach out and build a relationship, because I'm like, the first thing that this person wants to do when he meets me is extract value from me or get my business without even getting to know me for who I am, understanding my situation, what my background is, right? And obviously that's a big part of relationship building.
And that's a huge thing that people are missing with networking. is that it's almost, and just thinking about it now, it's almost like a 3-step process, and it could be broken down obviously much more deeper than that. But it's the original meet, then the connection, then the relationship. It's not just like, and that's the thing. And that's how I've always been, and why I think I've been able to make so many cool, relationships and connections even, is that for me, it was never about selling somebody. Like if you call me for an accident, rad, thank you so much. Like I absolutely appreciate it. But for me, I really want to connect with people on a deeper level and figure out, is there more than I can get out of somebody? And the fact that, their knowledge, their experience, their story, and then I can use that to do better in my own life. And I've always really followed that mantra rather than being like hard sell, hard sell, hard sell, because that's what people are used to.
The reason they do that is because they operate out of scarcity and they need that client, need that business tomorrow. Otherwise, they're still like strapped for cash or they're operating out of a survival mode. For me, I'm in abundance, and I know that I just want to open up as many doors as possible, build relationships long term. And some of these relationships might not even result in business, but that relationship might end up in like 2 more doors that get opened through that relationship that then leads to business or other opportunities. Or I might meet Kevin and we might not do business for 10 freaking years, and 10 years down the road, we end up coming together on a deal or something like that, right? I'm playing the long game.
Of course. And that's exactly how it should be looked at. With that being said, we went on this amazing tangent. I want to circle back about you.
Sure.
Tell me about you, man. Tell me your story, how you got to Tampa, and what life has been like.
Yeah, man. So a quick summary for those of you guys who are not familiar with who it is that I am. My name is Simon. I was actually born and raised in Russia, and I lived there for 13 years. So all of my upbringing was in Russia. And then at 13 years old, my mom brought me to America to pursue higher education in college, because for them, for my parents, education meant freedom. They grew up in the Soviet Union, and the only path to real success back then, and that's not just for Eastern European people, just in general, the older generation, education and being educated meant a lot. Today, however, it has changed so drastically because information is so commoditized. Back then, you could only acquire specialized information, which got you ahead in life through places like universities. Today, it's accessible everywhere. So they brought me to America at 13. I went to 8th grade and onwards in New York. They had some friends in New York, so I grew up there for the first 5-6 years of my American life, and it was honestly tough. I'm glad I came earlier than coming at like 18, 19. Because
did you know the language then?
I couldn't read English. I took some English back in school in Russia.
So you're 13 years old, basically learning to read English and speak it better.
Exactly. Speak it better, enough to get around and like ask a question, but wasn't reading it. And I'm so glad I came at 13, not an 18, and trying to learn all those things. But the culture aspect was also different. I remember kids invited me to go play football, and I'd come with a soccer ball, and everyone laughs. Mm-hmm. They're like, who is this kid? So I had a few of those instances, and I was like, I don't really fit into this thing. Let me just, after school, spend time, with my mom at home, and I would just nerd out on books, watch YouTube videos, play video games online, and that's kind of how I honestly got into business, because I was playing video games, and I started getting involved in like different online communities, because people online weren't judging me for my accent, or that I'm different, or that I'm not, one of the locals, who is cultured and stuff. And I started really getting fascinated with the video game aspect. I'd run home right after school. The moment the bell rang, I'd be on a bus home, and I'd spend all evenings playing video games. But eventually I figured that kids in my school were also playing these video games, and they would take money from their parents to buy these like virtual items and skins and FIFA like crates and knives and like all those different gun upgrades and whatever. And I was like, like kids my age are spending a bunch of money on that, and their parents are paying for it. And I found that very fascinating. And so I then started diving into it. And one day, actually, someone hit me up online, a stranger from California, out of me as friends, being like, hey, you have this gun I want. Can I pay you for it? I'm like, how does that work? How are you going to pay me for it? And he's like, I'll just PayPal you. I'll send you like $20. You can trade me this gun digitally. I was like, F it, let's give it a try. So I give this guy the gun digitally in a video game, and he PayPals me $20. And mind you, I'm like 14, 15 at the time. So that's when I kind of broke the limiting belief and proved to myself that strangers on the internet are willing to hand you money for goods and services. And that was my kind of beginning journey of entrepreneurship. So, I worked summer jobs. I was playing games after school. For a teenage guy in high school, I did pretty well. I think in like 3-4 years, I've made like $10,000 reselling these virtual items. Also saved up money.
No way.
Yes, saved up money through like lifeguarding, shoveling snow, and doing all that. I kept running into one issue, and that issue was the fact that I wasn't 18, and everybody who paid me with PayPal for those digital things, when I'd withdraw, I'd be able to withdraw the funds like once or twice or 3 times, and then they're like, "Hey, you're withdrawing money repeatedly. Please upload your photo ID." So I'd upload my photo ID, and they're like, "You're not 18 per PayPal terms and services. You can't use PayPal anymore," and they banned my account. Wow. And I had like by the age of 18, I had like 17 or 18 or almost 20 banned PayPal accounts because I'd have to create a new one, go through a process.
How did you get the funds out?
3-4 transactions. I connected to my mom's account, and then she just give me the money. And so I did that, but then
shout out moms.
But then I was like, there must be a better way. Like, I'm so tired of this. And that's when I started talking to other people reselling these items in the community, and they're like, I take Bitcoin as payment. You don't need like an ID or anything for that. I'm like, what's Bitcoin? So I was like 17 at the time, 2017, looking into that, and that's when Bitcoin was like $700-800 a coin.
No way.
And then I started taking payment in Bitcoin opposed to taking payment in PayPal cash. And then I graduated high school, got a girlfriend at the time, and I was like, some money made in crypto. And then I was like, the Bitcoin price went from 700 to 2,000. I didn't even have to do anything. So I made money reselling this gun, and now I just stored value in this asset, and this asset appreciated. I was like, cool. I learned about asset appreciation, where the underlying asset actually doubles in value, and you don't even have to do anything. I was like, now this is fascinating. And I just graduated high school, had a new beginning in college. So I was like, let me put this video game thing to the side. I wasn't really social during high school, was at home all the time. I want to have a new beginning where I can have a social life. Nobody here like knows me from all the mess up that I was in middle school and high school. I now speak proper English. I know the culture. So I was like, no more video game stuff. Let me go make friends in person. But I was still so fascinated about the charts on like Bitcoin. I was like, let me study this and transition all my focus and attention to that. And then based on that, I was researching other things in the industry, and I came across the stock market. I'm like, what other things can do what Bitcoin does? And it's like, there's stocks, and there's millions of stocks. And then I just went on a whole dive researching the stock market and understanding how the whole thing works, and started trading stocks with the money I made with video games, with summer jobs, with crypto. And I was in my freshman year of college. I went first for engineering because my parents said it would be a good job and was to please them. I really hated it. And then I switched to a business degree for the second semester. And I was already like trading in class, making some money, losing some money, like at a break-even point where I'm not, first I was just losing money, and then I started getting a grasp of it by educating myself and watching a bunch of videos. And then one day I was in a macroeconomics class, and my professor was talking about the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ and the indices. And I talked to him after class. I'm like, hey, this lecture was so fun and fascinating. I'm actually trading on my own time right now. This is all like cool, like intrigues me. I currently trade Tesla stock, and that's when it was like $120 pre-split. Should I buy more of it? Should I sell it? What should I do? He's like, Simon, I can't give you any advice on what to do with your stock portfolio. I personally don't invest in the stock market or trade. My wife doesn't let me. She thinks it's gambling. And I was like, wait a second. So I'm accumulating debt to learn from a professor on how to trade stocks and like invest, yet he doesn't invest himself because his wife doesn't let him. There's a disconnect there. It's like, if I'm an apple and I'm growing on an apple tree, then in this scenario, I'm growing on a rotten apple tree because, it's a bad tree. So I was like, something's not right. I don't want to get $200,000 in debt by taking advice from people who don't have the results that I want. So then at that point, I instantly made a decision I need to drop out of school. But I still realized that education was important. You just need to change the source of where you get your education. So second semester, freshman year of college, drop out of school in New York, and that's when COVID hits as well. And I'm like, I need to change where I'm getting my education from. And that's when I I started looking who can I get as mentors, and Grant Cardone and Ty Lopez and all those guys were popping off at the time, running ads here in my garage.
This is like 18, 19 probably?
Yeah, 18, 19, 2018, mid-2018.
Okay.
So then I come across this 10X Growth Conference. I'm like, all these millionaires are going to be there. Let me go there and learn from millionaires, as opposed to my professor who drives a 1996 Toyota Camry. So then I fly to Miami. I go to this 10X Growth Conference event, and I realized this is better. I'm learning from actual millionaires, but it's still not ideal because all the event ended up being is a sales fest where millionaires go on stage and they're like, I made $1 million doing X, Y, and Z. If you want to learn how to do the same, you got to buy my course.
Isn't that a shame, man? I want to touch on that. I mean, it's so, I understand that people have to learn money and you have to pay for knowledge, but it's like so frustrating to see some of our, I wouldn't say heroes, but kind of some of those guys that are really doing it. And I think that's why like the Gary, Vaynerchuk's and the Alex Hormozis and stuff and people like that have really taken off because they give out so much free information. And it's a shame to see a lot of these, we'll call them gurus, I guess, just all they're trying to do is extract from other people. And they're just not giving out a lot of value unless you pay for it. That's a bummer. I mean, really.
And what I learned at that event is the fact that it's all one size fits all information, because there's people from all different walks of life. There's 30,000 people. I can't go up to Grant Cardone and say, let's sit down one-on-one. I want to ask you questions about my personal situation in real estate. He'd be like, that'll be $80,000 an hour for a one-on-one. Right? Because there might be Mike, who is 18 and from New York, and there might be a lady who's 65 and just retired. You can't give these two people, same advice. You have to go very broad and generic when you're giving your speech.
So what do you get? You ask yourself at the end of the day, like, what am I really getting for this, other than the hoorah and go do it?
Exactly. So I was like, what's the main takeaway here? Well, the people I met at the event, but then I ended up in the same phase where I wake up and I have 25 business cards with names that I didn't get to build a relationship or rapport with. So that was my first introduction to events. And then after that, I was like, college was not it for getting education. Going to these events with motivational gurus and stuff is better. I meet people, they're actually making money, but something is flawed there. I was like, there was no model. Like, I'm sure there's other people who are in the same boat as me, and I'm not resonating with these two approaches to learn, so let me create my own way. So then I started a company called NetCon, literally like 2 weeks after that 10X Growth Conference event. I was like, let me host my own event the way I want it to be ran, and learn from the people that are speaking there, and build my own kind of like platform for myself and for others to learn in what in my head as an 18, 19-year-old seemed as a perfect way to learn. So then I started hosting business and entrepreneur conferences and events through NetCon, which was like, I want people to network and connect with like-minded individuals. That's where the name came from. And the first event I did in Long Island, New York was April 14th, 2019, gathered a room of a little bit over 100 people. We had 14 speakers covering all different topics that I wanted to learn. Some of them I met at that previous event, at all other events I was going to. Some I just messaged on social media. Some I then asked them for introductions. Do you know anybody else who teaches this and this? And people were covering marketing, e-commerce, drop shipping, stock trading, like all these skills that I'm like, I think these are valuable skills, and they don't teach you this in college, and I want to really learn those things. And the unique thing about the event was the speaker to attendee ratio was so small that it was like 100 attendees, 14 speakers. That's like 1:6, 1:7 ratio. You can go in a round table and sit down with speakers and really dive deep. And it was more so focused on implementation opposed to motivation. And
you're almost creating multiple masterminds basically happening at the same time.
Essentially. So that was my introduction to events. And then I ran 5 or 6 of these big conferences, had huge speakers like Jason Capital, Jeff Seckinger, Ravi Abuvala as speakers. Dan Fleischman was a speaker at one of my events back in 2019.
He's a super nice guy.
He's awesome. Does a lot of philanthropy. Have a lot of respect for the guy. And then COVID hit 2019. All in-person gatherings and meetings stopped. And then I transitioned to an online model and took the mastermind online. Then had just weekly calls with speakers. And at that time, I also made the decision to move down to Florida early 2020, I believe, June of 2020. I moved down to Tampa, Florida. A couple of reasons. Number one was you need a vaccine passport to go to Chipotle and get a bowl. It's cold. Left states were very, very, restrictive with COVID policies, and then state taxes. And I just needed to change the environment. I'm like, I'm no longer going to school here. There's no need for me to be in Long Island, New York, where nothing is going on during COVID. So I was like, let me go started a new beginning, moved down to Florida, slept on a stranger's couch that I met on social media for like 4 or 5 days while my furniture arrived, and then rented a townhouse, and then the rest is history. Here we are in Tampa 5 years later.
So I want to circle back to those online events. So how did that work? Were you charging people for those events, or how were you hosting those?
Yeah, so we had a freemium model where we had one monthly session for free, so people could get a taste of what it is, and then if they wanted to have that on a weekly basis, they could pay a monthly subscription, which I think we were charging for different tiers, like $99, $199 a month, and that was hosted back then through platforms like Discord and Zoom, where there's a Discord community. We had different sections where people can like chat and interact, one for real estate, trading, Shopify drop shipping, e-commerce, all those different things. We had different chat sections for people interested in discussing those topics, and then we'd have admins and moderators, and we brought in a speaker every single week to cover a particular topic, whether it's how do you run your personal brand, how do you scale an agency, how do you hire and recruit people. And for me, it was like, damn, I am getting paid to learn, pretty much.
That's awesome. What did you do once you got to Tampa?
Well, once I got to Tampa...
and this is what, mid-2020?
Yeah, that was like mid-2020, around this time of the year, like June, July, August 2020. Was living over here, and then... So all my time was spent on running this digital community and trading for myself. I never gave up on trading, was already very well in the markets in 2020, 2021 with QE started running up very well. So I did very well trading 2020, 2021. That year I went to my CPA locally here, and he's like, Simon, you owe a little bit over $400,000 in taxes. I'm like, come again? He's like, yeah, you got to pay that to Uncle Sam. I'm like, Uncle who?
Yeah.
So...
them short-term gains.
Yeah, speculating. I was like, oh, I thought I get to keep all the money I make. Anywho, and I was like, dude, how do I not have this happen next year? And he's like, you have 3 paths. You either move to Dubai, you move to Puerto Rico, or you figure out how to play the real estate game to create losses and offset that. I'm like, I'm not going to get bullied into moving where I don't want to live. I literally just moved here. So let me figure out this real estate thing. Obviously, Grant Cardone's built $1 million, buys jets to write off his income and hosts these events and owns
I saw that
so
story
many doors. And I'm like, maybe that could be me. Let me give it a shot and learn about real estate. So then I really started diving into real estate, bought my first property in November 2020. House acted, just had a 4-bedroom new construction home, had 2 roommates that paid for my mortgage. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I get to depreciate over 27 and a half years and do all that cool stuff. And then after that, dove more into real estate, started buying land, teardowns, getting into real estate development, short-term rentals, and we can go more in depth onto that, how that happened. Just want to pace ourselves, and I don't know which areas you wanted to go more in depth on.
I really want to talk about the real estate development. I think the Airbnb is incredibly interesting, but the real estate development, I think, really kind of sets you apart from so many people. Especially your early 20s,
24.
Yeah. Not a lot of people are developing real estate at 24 years old. So how did that come about?
So real estate development came about from, I'm very analytical when it comes to decision making and strategic, and I played a lot of chess growing up, played with Rubik's Cubes and did all that kind of stuff. So for me, strategy always came naturally, and thinking of second and third and fourth degree consequences was innate to me. I would say that's, I guess, my strength suit when people are like, what is
story of my life?
Yeah. What is your, not claim to fame, but what is your skill set that you excel at? And for me, it's just understanding second and third degree consequences. A lot of people play checkers. I play chess in terms of business. So
it's every day. Client, yeah. What happens next, Kevin? Well, let's break that down.
Yeah. And if this happens, then what happens?
Yeah.
Right? So for me, I was like, I'm trading right now. I have all this money, and I'm enjoying the remote kind of lifestyle of not having to go places, just sitting on my computer clicking buttons.
Were you traveling at all, or just kind of mainly staying in Tampa and doing your thing?
Maybe once a year for some events and conferences.
So you were pretty focused in your work.
Yeah, I was focused on the work and building companies at that time, because I was like, this is my time to elevate. Nobody's going out. There was no peer pressure to go to bars and clubs and all these things. So I was like, time to lock in, because when this is over, people are going to be flooding and going back to the whole, rah-rah, roo-roo, bar, club, distraction. So I'm like, this is my 12 to 18 month period to lock in. So I locked in. And how real estate development came around is I literally pulled out a sheet of paper. I'm like, let me put into categories all different ways that I know it's possible to make money in real estate, and let's go through different like pros and cons of each one of them. So I was like, you can be a broker, you can be a realtor, you can be a house flipper, you can be a wholesaler, you can develop properties, you can do Airbnb, you can do Section 8. It's just like the stock market. You can trade, penny stocks, you can trade giant stocks, you can trade options, you can do futures. There's a gazillion ways to make money. I'm like, from what I know in the stock market, you need to pick one niche and go all in on that. You can't be doing all things at the same time. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed at any of them. Let me go through each one of them, understand what they all entail, what are the pros and cons of it, and see which one integrates the best into my current work and my current lifestyle. And I went through, let's say fix and flipping. I was like, this is cool. You can make a lot of money with this. But then the fact is you need to constantly look for deals. You have to pay short-term capital gain taxes because you're not in the deal for over a year. And then missing out on all tax benefits and you get no upside appreciation. I was like, well, that's no fun. And I don't have time to always be on the lookout for a deal, nor do I want to be in a field, every week supervising a construction site and flipping a property and dealing with all that. I was like, an agent, I don't want to do that because now I'm on the clock and always need to be out there showing stuff and talking to people. Same with like Section 8. I'm like, I'm not trying to get shot trying to collect rent. I want to deal with higher end people. So I was learning about all these things, and why development stood out to me is like full disclaimer, I'm not a general contractor. I'm not a realtor. What I refer to myself as like a deal architect. And my strength is find all the pieces of the puzzle, pieces of the equation, put it together and have like a full blown picture come out of it. So I was like, development makes sense because for me, I was like, I have all this cash from trading. I can deploy it into a development deal. For the 8 to 12 months the property is being constructed, I don't have to be there every single day. I don't have to supervise a project. I just fund the project. I obviously architect it. I work with architects, designers to come up with the big vision of like what's going to go there, but I'm not there physically. Maybe I'll stop by like once a month to just check on progress and make sure everything's how it's supposed to be. So that gives me back control of my time so I can focus on online businesses and trading. I was like, I'm getting a new product at the end of it, which the insurances are cheaper on that. You are dealing with a higher level clientele that are paying, top dollar for new construction homes and stuff like that. And that pretty much is why I picked real estate development. You also walk into a lot of equity right away, opposed to like finding a property. There's tax benefits to it. It's also fun for me. The biggest reason real estate was so fun is because all the other businesses, they're digital. So getting a feedback loop for progress is very hard because it's all numbers on a dashboard. It's like more ad spend, more clicks, more conversions, more views, and you can't really like touch it, feel it, smell it. But in real estate development, it's like one day you go there, it's an empty piece of land. The next week you go there, there's a foundation. 4 months you go there, there's walls and a roof. 6 months go by and you have a full-blown house and you have tenants in there. And you see that transformation, that gives you a feedback loop that, hey, I'm actually moving the needle in the right direction.
You kind of hit on it earlier about, the struggle with PayPal when you're selling those things. Being so young and having so much success and kind of, when we think of, especially in real estate development, when we're kind of talking about that game, we're talking about people that are probably twice your age. Being so young, what are some of the challenges that you think you faced and how have you overcome those?
Well, there's quite a few challenges with real estate development, and it's like with anything, it's you don't know what you don't know. So for me, my first deal, I had no clue what I'm doing. I didn't have the right people in my network, and how I learn, I know that I learned by doing. So I just had to put my back against the wall, burn all the ships, and say, I'm going to figure it out. Why a lot of people in any business, real estate development especially, they don't get started is because they think they need to have a full, clear picture of everything that's going to happen throughout the project, and they have analysis paralysis, and they never get started. And for me, I realized that clarity comes from progress. You need to start chipping away at it, and the more progress you make, the more clear that picture becomes. It's like for people saying that they're at zero, and they're like, I want to make $1 million a year. And then they're like, that seems so overwhelming. I don't have a brand. I don't have clients. I don't know what to sell. I don't know any of this. This is too much. I haven't even made 10 grand. How am I going to make $1 million? And then they just never get started. Opposed to switching that perspective and saying, hey, let me start putting some puzzle pieces together and outline a perimeter. Let me get a first client. Let me figure out what a brand is. Let me talk to people. Let me do product market fit analysis and talk to people. Do they even need this service? And then the things after you make your first, not $1 million, let's say just like the first $2,500, $5,000, the things that you learned along the way doing that are going to then propel you to go from $2,500 to $10,000. And then the things you're going to learn along that process are going to propel you to go forward, because you're going to acquire new relationships, new skills. You're going to get more clarity on how to put the next foot in front of the other. So,
with that being said, and some advice that I got from a good friend a couple years back, when you're learning these lessons, and then, I'll talk about kind of sometimes dealing with mentors in unison, biting off more than you could chew, and then dealing with people that are not dealing with the same problems that you're dealing with. And let me say it like this. If you're trying to make $1 million a year, you wouldn't talk to somebody that's making $100 million a year. You want to talk to somebody that's making $10 million a year. Just like if you were trying to make $100 million a year, you wouldn't talk to somebody that was making $10 million a year. You would be talking to somebody that's making $1 billion a year. And I think that goes the same way with the real estate market as well, is small bites. You don't have to go and get into the 7-figure project.
You don't go from geometry to calculus.
Yeah,
you go
correct.
Geometry, trigonometry, pre-calculus, calculus, and keep advancing. So if you can't do basic algebra, don't skip to calculus.
Absolutely. And that's one of the biggest things, or the biggest kind of social media, we'll go with that, kind of misnomers that I see so often. It's like, I can teach you how to buy, 50 rental homes this year. Or I can teach you how to do, $5 million in wholesale, or setting up 50 Airbnbs. It's like, just figure out how to do one. Figure out how to do two. You know what I mean? Figure out how to do the next one and the next one, and be obviously cautious with over leveraging.
And that's why for me, people are like, "Oh, are you doing any commercial multifamily yet?" I'm like, I am learning how to crawl, and then I'll walk, and then I'll run, and then I'll sprint, and then I'll run a marathon. Right? I'm right now in a phase where, yes, I'm good at what I do. I'm learning new things. I'm taking bigger projects, but I'm not there yet. I'm not going to go and start a 400 unit commercial project tomorrow, because there's still a big gap between where I am now and the skills and the relationships and the know-how I need to acquire between that. There's a big gap to fill, right? I can't just skip all this work. A lot of people have the shiny object syndrome, and they're like, oh, let me just skip to the next step before they did all the work. And that's been my biggest setback as an entrepreneur, is being so eager and impatient and trying to skip to the next level before you really master the previous one.
And I think it gets lost, and I want to make this point to the audience. It's not the point that I'm saying don't start. I'm saying absolutely start, but when you do, be measured, be controlled. Try to put some guardrails out there. Try to put some parameters out there to make sure that you have longevity, to make sure that you can keep doing what you're trying to do. And I think that's a great example for you to go out and do a 400 unit project. Could you do it? Yeah, you could probably figure it out. But do you want to take that much risk, or do you want to build your way there to ultimately gain the longevity?
They say that you should surround yourself with 33% of people that are way above you and like out of reach in terms of business success, 33% of people that are on your level, and then another third that are below you. So how I kind of interpret it is like, have 33% of people around you that are like mentors that you strive to be like, that you aspire to be like, that know more than you, that have more experience, more money, more wealth, more opulence. Then 33% of people that are kind of like in your range, where let's say if I'm at $1 million, someone's at 5 million, like that, it's a stretch, but it's not so far of a stretch where it's just like a massive canyon that you can't even like walk across, right? And then have 33% of people around you that are below you, and those are the people that you want to bring up to your level. And what I found very useful for me is teaching other people information that I learn to, first of all, help bring them up, and second of all, to solidify that information for myself. Because if I know I can teach that information to somebody else, I need to first understand it in and out. And a lot of people, they think they know something, but then when you have to like explain a concept or teach it, they're like, I don't really know how to do that, right? That means there's still a gap there in some capacity. So.
Well, you almost challenge yourself at that point, like how well do you really know it? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If you can't even teach it to somebody else, then how well do you really understand it? So one thing I want to go back to, when we first met, you had, I think, a filmer with you when you were documenting, the event. how important is, and I obviously follow your social media as well, so I'll say, how important do you think it is for an entrepreneur, somebody involved in business to document things and to create content?
That's a really good point that you bring up, and I was never like a fan of content. I believe in like evil eye and not putting so many things out there in social media because especially things that pertain to like family relationships. Like I never post things like that because I don't want things taken away from me that I can't get back. I'll post like business success and money and like trips and travel and whatever for inspirational purposes, but I also know like from an evil eye perspective, it's like something that I have the skill and know-how to get back. Like money is infinite. They print it all the time. So even if I lose money or something happens to it, I can always go out there and get more versus like one-on-one things like relationships with your parents, with your girlfriends, with whatever it may be. I'm kind of like more cautious on those things. But social media today we have to all understand is that we are all brands, right? Whether we like it or not. And you just have to accept that you're a brand and all of us are a brand and there's different ways to perceive a brand, right? And today people perceive a brand based on your social media presence, and that's referred to as your personal brand. So can only speak from experience. I know that I've been able to amplify what I'm doing through social media. I wouldn't recommend for people to be on social media if they are purely consuming and not creating. I've been on both sides of the spectrum where it kind of got carried away where I was just like observing other people doing their stuff versus actually doing stuff on my own. And then there's, keeping up with the Joneses and seeing that other people are succeeding and you're not. And it can play a lot of like mental games with you where like he's making 100 million in 24 and I'm only made 2 million. You're killing yourself over the fact that you haven't, found that opportunity or aren't making as much money as somebody else. So there's pros and cons to being on social media. I think it's a tool that people need to learn how to use properly and leverage it for a certain aspect. If you're just on social media to be on social media, I'd say get off it because you need to get your focus and attention back and detox a little bit and focus on actually building something. But if you are about doing big things and you want to serve and you want to lead and you want to create value for people and you see this as a tool to amplify that and leverage the audience you have to build projects, to give more to your church, to bring a community of people together, then it could be a very powerful tool. It's a very powerful tool if you know how to use it, right?
I couldn't agree more. And I'll tell you, years ago, probably when I was in law school and then first coming out of law school, I used social media in the way that the bad way that you were talking about. I was looking at all these people and, looking at all this fashion and I'm a big watch guy and a big car guy. And, look at this guy's got this watch and I want to do this and I want to do that. And I'll tell you the last couple years, and I would say especially in the last year, once I started viewing social media as something that I could use to give back to people and connect with people, completely different. I viewed social media completely different. Once I said, I don't care how many likes I get on this. I don't care how many comments I get on this. All I want to do is give out information that I hope at least one person will see and it'll help them that day or help them. And to connect with meaningful people like we have now, I said that's really when it became worth it. And I would advise everybody to do that. There's going to be, and I don't care how small of a town you come from or how small of a place you come from, and you even shared your story about meeting people online. There's going to be people out there that you connect with, that you can do good with. And I think if you use social media in the right way, like you're referring to, it can be so powerful. I mean, the communities that can be created could be incredible.
And the thing is, we're all one-on-one. We're all unique in our ways. We all have our own story, and that's so powerful. And I feel as though if you have a skill, if you know how to do something, and you do it very well, and you're not sharing it on social media and helping other people learn that, you're actually doing other people a disservice. I kind of view it that way, that if you
it's a great point.
Aren't showcasing your talents and what you were put on this earth to do by your creator, you're literally doing other people a disservice, right?
Everybody, and when I have asked me and I created this podcast, and I believe they told me not to say numbers, but I believe this is episode 7, which is insane to me. And again, thank you so much for coming on. you know, they're like, what's your podcast going to be about? Like, are you going to do like legal advice or car? I was like, I don't want to do anything about that. I said, I am doing this because there are some amazing people in Tampa Bay and I want to learn from them. And this is such a fantastic medium for me. So call me selfish, but this is a fantastic medium for me to learn from people. And then, like you said, if I can share this information with people and highlight them and highlight Tampa, a place that I grew up in and a place I love, I mean, it's a win for everybody.
I would kind of interrupt there.
Please.
I found it interesting the fact that you said, excuse me for being selfish. I actually don't find it selfish. I think in life you need to be selfish to be selfless, because you are going to learn from all the people on this show, on this podcast, skills, trades, beliefs that you may not have had earlier, and then you're going to leverage this platform to give it back to the community. If you were just like, hey, I want to extract it for just my own good, off cameras, and like, let me pick your brain type of thing, and go grow your business, that's one thing. It's a completely different thing where you're learning, you're extracting value, yes, but now you're redistributing that back and giving it back in an even greater capacity to an audience that's watching this that can also now learn with you. So.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And if there's anything, or when we're talking about giving back, and we hit on it rather in the beginning of the episode, but the Tampa Entrepreneur Club, man. I mean, what you guys are doing, insane. Like, there is 800 people there. Tell me how that came about. Like, let's get into that.
So I had as you know, I come from an events background, experience, hosting these conferences. I actually, through hosting these events, met 3 of the 4 of my co-founders.
So there's 5 of you?
Yeah, there's 5 of us. We're all co-founders. So Tampa Entrepreneurs is a 501c6 nonprofit organization. We host free quarterly local events for the Tampa community, for individuals to connect with each other and not just do business together, but to do life together, right? And we came about, I think we just came back from a trip. We were at another event, and somebody mentioned the fact there was a big chunk of people at that event that myself, my co-founder Joe, and my co-founder Ryan were all speakers at, in attendance, and they were all from Arizona, and they all seemed to know each other somehow. And I'm like, how do you guys all know each other? And you were at this event, that was in Mexico, mind you. You guys came from Arizona to watch us speak in Mexico at a business retreat, and you are all friends. They're like, oh, we're part of this like local community there. We just make friends. We travel together. We're just like all local entrepreneurs, form friendships. I think theirs was like an Arizona entrepreneurs, like something of that nature. And we got back from that trip. I'm like, Joe, Ryan, it would be kind of cool to like do something like that. Here we don't really have anything like that, and just make local friends who are also entrepreneurs and like-minded, and maybe create a way for people to like travel together or just hang out with like-minded people. We all like that, right? And then we sat down and we're like, well, Simon, you have event experience. We have all our networks that we've grown over the years here. Let's give it a test and maybe host like a local meetup or something. And on a 2 weeks notice, we just curated a list of people who we thought would be a good fit to like invite to an event. And I hosted it actually at one of my Airbnb properties because we didn't have it was just an idea. We didn't have money to spend. We wanted to see if there's even product market fit. Like, do people even really care about this? Is this needed in the community? And first event on a 2 week notice, we had 120 people show up from just 4 of us.
I heard like in a backyard.
Yeah, DMing people on Instagram, and I think that event, like, it was very low commitment. It wasn't like high production. We spent like maybe $1,200 on like drinks, on like signage, on like social media stuff, and just like all that kind of stuff. Whereas now we spend multiple 6 figures each and every event. So we had 120 people show up to that, and then we're like, wow, there's like really a need for that. And it validated the fact that Tampa needs a local entrepreneur community for thinkers, for doers, for people who want to get inspired and motivated and just the next generation forward. We're like, let's run with this now that we have momentum. 120 people showed out. We can't let this die off. And we hosted our next event at American Social 3 months later. And that had around 400 people in attendance. And we're like, we just went from, 120 to 400 people in a room.
Yeah, 3.5x. Yeah, no big deal.
In 3 months.
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, we did another event, which was a big step up, which was a 39,000 square foot private airplane hangar at Shelter.
Yep.
And we had 700 people in attendance there.
Again, just, doubling up.
Yeah,
so
doubling up.
And now we're 6x from the first event. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just been exponential growth. And the reason we've grown so fast is the fact that we do exactly what I covered on this podcast, is we are approaching it with a servitude mindset and give mindset. We haven't asked our audience for anything yet. We don't sell anything. We don't have offers. We're not transactional. And we just have so much residual trust from the community that it's insane. And we really genuinely care about every single individual that comes to our events. We operate out of abundance. We're not there to extract or take anything from the community. If opportunities come about from it, great, but we're not doing it for monetary fulfillment. And I feel like by 2024, people are very good on sniffing people's intentions.
They are. They really are, man. I mean, the first event I went to, so I saw the social media postings prior, and I was like, I knew I couldn't miss this. I got to check this out. And it was at the Motor Enclave, and I'm a big car guy, obviously, so it all fit together. And I stood up on the balcony. I got the VIP ticket, and I just looked down, and it was just a sea of people. I mean, it was insane, and it was so cool. You took people out on the track. And so the next one came around at what was the hotel called?
Sullivan.
Yeah. The next one came around, and I'm like, I can't miss this. I remember seeing that the ticket obviously I think it was posted on you guys' social media, and I bought my ticket within an hour. And I think you guys sold out at general admission within a couple days?
No, an hour and a half.
Okay. So I'm super off. Yeah.
650 tickets for general admission went. So
hour and a half gone.
Yeah. So if you want to be at the next event, make sure to follow Tampa Entrepreneurs and be on a wait list. We have an event coming up actually tentatively November 14th. So
Sweet. Okay. Mark your calendars. Yeah.
Yeah. Mid-November, there's going to be an event that's happening. Can't tell more details on where, when, or how, but mid-November, going to have another one. Always.
Hopefully it's at St. Joseph's Hospital. My wife's due 2 weeks later. So yeah, I wouldn't mind that. But thanks, man. So yeah, the events are insane, and they are really genuine connections and real people. And I want to harp on that. You said that people smell your bullshit. I mean, I'm just going to say it. People smell that now more than ever in these disingenuous posts and coaching and nonsense.
It's also that, going back to you mentioned Gary Vee and Hormozy of they have so much residual trust because they just give so much information and value, and they don't really ask for much in return. So for us, it's kind of applying the same concept. Is I know if our first event we charged for tickets instead of maybe 120 people, we would have had 15 people there because they're like, This is new, this is sketchy. I haven't heard of these guys. What if it's a scam? What am I getting into? My time is valuable, right? And then we wouldn't have had such an exponential growth because, if let's say 10 or 15 people came instead of 120, there's none of that ripple effect. Now having that free model where people can just come join for free. And mind you, it's not just go in a room for free. We provide free drink tickets for every single attendee, which is imagine giving 700 people free alcohol, right? Free food for all attendees, all cool experiences they can just be a part of. It's not because you have to also realize what I've learned is that there's always a price tag to something, even if it's free. When it's free, the price tag is your time. And sometimes even free is too expensive because people value their time more than what you have to offer.
If there's that's huge. And if there's anything that I want people to get, especially out of this episode, and I think we've hit on it multiple times, is give, man. Give. Create a culture, create a community, and give yourself, and you can really build something special. So with that being said, there's obviously, as we end every episode, thank you, Simon, for joining us. No accident that Simon is successful. And yeah, again, man, thanks so much for joining us.
You, Kevin.
We appreciate it. And they told me to say this, my Modern Media Group that produces this for me, so I'm going to throw this out there for you guys. If you enjoy these episodes, make sure you like it. Make sure you subscribe. If you want to check me out, you can obviously look me up at Attorney Kevin on Instagram. And Simon, where can they find you, man?
You guys can connect with me on Instagram. It's at Mr. Simon Lerner. I look forward to connecting with you guys, and thank you for watching the show.
Absolutely. We're out.